Thank you, Teresa, and thanks students for welcoming me to join you guys today. So I looked over your syllabus and all of the presenters that you have, and you have a wonderful group of people who will be able to tackle the topics of your course. I chose to take the second topic, which is really the networking portion and your career path portion. I actually know some of the people who will be speaking with you at later dates, Andrea and Greg. I've worked with closely, so I am absolutely confident you guys are going to have an amazing semester, and they will provide you with a lot more of the details in that specific area. So as far as advertising, PR executives, and industry trends, it's one slide. So I just want to manage expectations so you know going into it. The remainder of the presentation will be focused on creating that forum for networking and career guidance, and it's in a workbook style. So we're going to talk about the questions. You can feel free to raise your hand and answer them or use the workbook at a later date. But what I've tried to provide you with is your journey from choosing your first career through ultimately completing your career or transitioning to different careers throughout your lifetime. So with that, as far as industry trends go, there are great resources obviously online and traditional printed formats for you. But really, I'll tell you the two that I find to be the most useful for my journey. The Wall Street Journal is obviously it's a publication. You can get it old school print or you can get it online and both. And then separately, the Harvard Business Review. That is a pricier subscription, but it is a wealth of information for those of you who are looking or may have supplemented your Comm Arts and Sciences with a business degree or have a desire to move to C-suite level at a company either you create or a company that you hire into. So good wealth of information for those documents. All these facts on industry trends came from the Wall Street Journal. They do a summer supplement every June. It's devoted completely to the advertising industry. And if you're interested in current trends, that is the resource to find fast facts on. So with regard to media mix and spend, Cars.com shook up the industry model by moving their traditional media mix to a full streaming. So all of their advertising for their upcoming fiscal will be on streaming services. That's one big shift that advertising agencies and media agencies will be dealing with in the coming year. Direct-to-consumer brands, the emergence just continues. Third Love and other brands like Third Love represent more a revenue opportunity for traditional agencies. Data and holding companies, so Acxiom was purchased by IPG, Interpublic. I believe you guys would know that that's one of the largest holding companies. The largest holding company, WPP, is actually selling off Kantar, which is a majority stake in that research firm. So different holding companies doing different things, but they tend to set the temperature for what other agencies of that size may do. There is an emergence too as well. Deloitte is a consulting firm. They've entered the mix and they are now competing against traditional agencies of all sizes for client business. And then lastly, privacy laws, specifically in Europe that will eventually move here, will really dictate where brands and thus agencies are recommending investments so that consumers know that the data will actually be safe and secure. But with that, we're going to roll right into why I'm here, which is to talk about you guys and your career search. So Teresa shared with me, I think we have a combination of juniors and seniors. Is that correct for the most part for this class? Okay, and that some of you are graduating December, whether that's fifth-year seniors or whether you got there through AP classes and are just graduating early. Obviously, it's an important time, whether you're graduating now or graduating in the spring. What I want to do with the rest of this class is talk about your career, how to make the most of it with an actionable plan. So I'm going to show you the steps in alignment on things that big decisions you've made in your life before, which are, again, very similar to what you're going to go through now. So if you think about when you guys thought you were seeking a college, you knew what your goals were. You either knew what your major was or you knew what field you were interested in. You knew what geography, whether you were going to stay in state, go out of state. You knew if you wanted a large school or a small school. You made that list and then you applied through Common App and other methods and then you got rejected and you got accepted. I'm assuming everybody gets rejected and accepted to their reach schools or to their broad group of schools. But ultimately you chose Michigan State. This job is that important for you as well. You are choosing a company and the company is choosing you and you have a very important voice in that decision. So the more homework you can do up front, the better your choices are going to be for you. So we're going to go through this, and again, It's workbook style, so you're going to see lots of words, and we had a great debate before with people at my home who said, oh, they're going to be bored to tears because there's words, words, words. But these words will matter to you, whether they matter today or whether they matter 3 months from now, 6 months from now. It's a useful tool. I've trained and promoted over 200 people throughout my career, from entry level to executive vice president level, from here to London. So please trust me when I tell you these words will matter to you at a later date. We're going to look at the map very quickly. We're going to then talk about goals, goal setting, selection criteria in your candidacy, actually activating the job search. So quick show of hands, how many of you guys are actually actively looking right now? Good, good group, good numbers. As far as, actually do another show of hands, how many of those that just raised their hands are graduating in December? Okay. All right, applying and tracking, really important to document your historical. You'll use this throughout your career. You will learn things every step of your career when you start at entry level or when you get to the title that is the one you most desire. The actual interviewing process, I've given you guys some sample questions that you can get used to hearing. Offer acceptance, there are lots of things to think about when someone gives you an offer, when an agency or company gives you an offer. Validating your career path, you should do that regularly, annually, if not sooner. And then exploring opportunities, position elimination. That's a reality. I can tell you this, at the agency I last worked at, we let go of assistant account executives, junior producers, junior art directors. So that is a reality in our industry. It's a reality truly in any industry. If business tends to go south, people are going to lose their jobs to keep the company profitable. And then we're going to talk a little bit about growth and development. And then in the appendix are a few facts with me and my contact information. My Gmail address is in there. If any of you want to reach out to me after this class at any time, you are more than welcome to. Okay, navigating the journey, graduation to retirement. So I'm sure you guys are thinking, why is she talking about retirement? We're 22 years old. You actually do need to start thinking about retirement when you take your first job, and we'll talk a little bit about that and some really important decisions you can make based on the company you choose to see how well they're going to invest with you in your future, and we'll talk about that in a bit. So this is a chart that I could devote one class a week, one column to. It's a lot of words, it's a lot of content, but essentially left to right, it's you at your journey right now, whether you're graduating, whether you are seeking and moving into an internship, or whether you are going on to continue your education. Left to right, we're going to go down each column and talk about the specific steps and actions and strategies and tactics you will be using and you may want to tap throughout your journey. And then, you know, at the far end, that is really kind of the broad goals toward the end of your journey on continuing until you decide you're ready to either move on to a different path or retire. And you want to be prepared for that as well and thinking about that. So just getting started as you prep for graduation, again, whether it's internships, continuing education, or actually interviewing, there are 4 basic tools that you need. A resume, a cover letter, a website with work samples, and then business cards. Business cards may surprise you, but because you're not part of a business yet, but show of hands, does anyone have personal business cards in here? Okay, good. Good. That will give you an advantage for in-person contact, career fairs. People don't always love pulling out their phone and like taking the time to do the quick contact share. Sometimes that card is something that will differentiate you from others when you're at a big event like a career fair, and I'm assuming you guys will be attending some of those. So if you think about it, really what I've done here in this column I've shared with you, this is a continuous journey. You should be updating your resume once you land your first position or whether you finish an internship. You should be updating your resume very consistently and constantly with data that you're collecting about what accomplishments you've achieved, whether it's part of a team or whether it's you on your own and independently. So really resume sections for you guys will vary. Obviously you're more entry to level, so you're going to have things like, you know, a statement about who you are and what type of position you're seeking. It's really important to make sure that anyone who sees your resume understands what you're applying for. So is this primarily people that are account side, or do we have creatives in here as well? Anyone in here looking to get a creative position? Yes, okay, good. So you're going to have things like, you know, your statement, your position, entry-level position, whether you're looking for mid-size, large, small firm. Your education is far front, straight up at the top. As your career advances, your education is obviously goes to the end of the resume. Your capabilities and competencies, which you've picked up along the way at positions that you've held, Professional experience, interests, references. So references, you should have 3, and they should be diverse, and we'll talk about that a bit later. And then some housekeeping issues, naming conventions. So your resume is going to get stored and sent around to a bunch of people. Make sure that your resume is named properly with your name, the date, and then if you are repurposing someone else's resume, and I've seen this a million times, I've looked through a million resumes, make sure that the properties section has your name in it, not the 5 other people who had that same resume template. As far as versioning, you can customize your resume, have versions, different versions for the positions that you are applying for. Anyone in here have multiple versions of their resume? Good, okay, good. Generally speaking, proofread, QA, it's one of the, I know agencies that if they spot a typo in your resume, you're not going to advance. You won't even advance to a phone screen, and I'm being incredibly honest with you right now, that is true. As far as submission, I typically encourage people to PDF. Formats tend to stay clean and not sending them in open documents. And then you guys said a good group of you already have business cards, and you know how easy it is to make that happen. So moving into the actual workbook, as you're thinking about whether you'll use this tool that I'm giving you, these are the 3 most important questions, and I've assembled them because the quote to the left is from the founder of Pandora. So he spoke at a commencement for high school students in Bloomfield Hills, and he said, he told his story, he threw away his notes, stood up in front of the kids, and he said, do what you love and the money will follow. And then he told his story about the fact that he was passionate about music. He tried for many years he had a band, and he was traveling and doing other jobs, and he had graduated from Stanford with a degree in, I think, political science. I think that's what it was. Regardless, he had a passion, he loved music, and he was great at technology. He put those 2 things together and created the algorithm for organizing music, and as you guys know, Pandora, the first, and when it went public with its IPO, that year I think the revenue for that company was $100+ million. So doing things that you love and you're passionate about are going to come through when you interview for a position at that type of firm, or when you actually get a job at that type of firm. And you can find ways to put things together that you love and you're good at. I'll give you one other example. So our student, classmate of my kids, loves streetwear and has a business degree. He looked for a job at StockX, so literally every day for him he's combined his 2 favorite things. So I encourage you guys to really answer these questions honestly. What do you love and what are you good at? They might not be exactly the same, but you can try to make them fit so that you can, again, enable more happiness for your career path. So how do you figure out what companies to actually go after? So again, what do you love? What industries excite you? Is size, culture, region a factor? Do you want to stay in Michigan or do you want to end up in California? What categories or brands do you have experience with? Well, we're all consumers, and you guys, Gen Z, are the most market-savvy consumers that have existed. So your experience with brands is important, whether you've worked on those brands in a professional capacity or not. And don't think they aren't. They actually really are. Then you need to think about titles. So I'm sure you guys have all been on LinkedIn and looked at the millions and millions of titles that are out there. I can tell you at a company of 800, I did a title mapping exercise. There were over 400 titles. So you guys have to hone in on the type of titles and department that you're going to be seeking as well. Pretty easy to Google search those sorts of things, or go ahead and go into LinkedIn and jobs, and you can find the type of titles that you would be interested in. Most of the entry-level positions in advertising either have the word junior in front of them, right, or assistant, account coordinator, account executive, assistant account executive, junior producer, junior art director, junior copywriter. What contacts do you have in the industries, categories, or brands you favor? I assume you guys are deeply networked and already have LinkedIn profiles and already are building your network with people that you reach out to that you are interested in, either where they work or you know them from your personal or professional experience. If you have not done that, that is something I would encourage you to do. So again, asking yourself these questions and filling it out is going to help guide you to the types of companies you're interested in pursuing. Next step is you have to make yourself really the candidate of choice. And so, you have tools to do that. Obviously, your resume, your references, any work that you've done that addresses what the job requirements are, and then your key strengths. So your references are really useful here if you get to that stage, because you can discuss with them the capabilities that the position is asking, and when they get these phone calls or these emails, they can then respond to your match to those specific capabilities. And so again, going over what's going to be different about you, why your resume is going to be different. I can tell you, a recent position on a LinkedIn job had over 1,000 candidates. They screened. To fill that position, it took 2 months. They rejected the majority of candidates, did not even make it to a phone screen. The next group of candidates went through phone screen and made it to an in-person interview. And then there were 4 rounds after that with 6 different people. So that's the type of situation you could be going into. Again, that's for a different level job, but even entry level now is taking up to 4 weeks to go through the process. Anyone want to tell me how long it took them to secure an internship they applied for? No? 3 weeks. That's thanks. Yeah, that's a common average. I mean, 3 to 4 weeks. The time it took you to apply for that, it's going to expand when you go to apply for a full-time annual position. And then in terms of things you've accomplished, you may have done things from a volunteer perspective or in addition to your professional accomplishments that can help support your candidacy for that position. You just really want to dive into the job requirements and make sure you are positioning yourself as the best person to meet those requirements. Again, we talked about references. So references at your stage could be professionals that you've worked with that have directly supervised you. They could be family friends. They could be someone that you volunteered with, someone you've worked with if you have had a position at this point. Again, you want to pick and choose and make sure that they're people who are exposing different sides of you. So think about what you did for each of the people that you are asking to be your reference, because that will help you figure out, like, yes, you don't need 3 people that supervised you. You might want to find, someone who was either a peer that you can add into that mix that may say different things about your teamwork and collaboration. So just be very choosy with your references. How many people in here have a personal website? Okay, good. It's a great idea if you have a lot of work that you want to show, whether it's spec work that you've comped and just made up from class assignments or projects. As long as it's not proprietary and you have permission to use it, it's good to have examples of your writing styles and that sort of thing. But if you are going to build it, again, make sure that you've got a good resource here at State that can look over and help you pick and choose too. That's really important. And I think you've got obviously you've got great academic leaders here who could help you with that. Writing samples is really important in advertising. Being able to communicate and articulate your thoughts in concise ways will matter, from everything to developing creative briefs, writing client presentations, writing client marketing plans, presenting at award shows if the work is entered and wins, to working in new business, which you could be tapped on the shoulder to do at any level, or you could volunteer if you do end up at an agency. It's a great proving ground and learning experience. And then always assessing what your core strengths and capabilities are, and they could change. You could, as you're progressing, you'll dial up certain strengths and you'll acquire new strengths, and you're going to want to make sure that that's always front and center for you. As far as activating the search, you need a contact strategy, and I know you guys are all familiar with what that means, but essentially you need a spreadsheet to make sure that you are tracking the brand, the position title, whether you applied and what specific details or unique they asked for, what resumes you submitted if you are using different versions of a resume, cover letter, which you can customize, interview rounds, rejection, did they tell you why? So you will get rejected, that's a fact of life. Sometimes they'll explain why, sometimes they won't, but it certainly is your right to question, was there a specific reason that I wasn't the ideal candidate for this? You will learn things from it, and it's not really seen as an aggressive question, it's just a basic question you're just trying to get intel on. You'll want to track your references. You may have different references for different positions. If you're applying to an advertising agency and let's say the president of an ad agency is your reference, that's good. If you're applying to a brand and maybe you have a family friend who's a CMO, that might be a reference you would slide in addition to the president of the agency as a reference. So have a bunch of references and know how to use them. And then, ultimately you guys are going to get to an offer. You're all going to get jobs and you're all going to be making decisions on what those first jobs will be. So the interviewing process, which you guys have already gone through, I'm sure for other positions, but now this is your career position, it's just these are basic tips. Do your homework, follow up. Those are common sense things. Be ready for rejection and know that the right position is going to be there and you will find it. do your homework on the brand. You can use the brand's website. I recommend annual reports. They are really the best. If it's a publicly traded held company, you will get a wealth of information from looking at an annual report or looking at notes from quarterly earnings statements. They are available on brand websites, and you don't have to read the 250 pages. You can read the executive summary up front and understand what the brand, its products and services are forecasting to their investors, what their path is as strategy and tactics for the year. So if you like Apple, go online and look at Apple, any other brand that might be of interest to you. Use reputable resources. I think that goes without saying. You definitely want to make sure you're fact checking. Exercise caution when weighing consideration of social sites. So this is important. There are lots of reasons why some social sites will say you'll find favorable ratings and less than favorable ratings. You want to believe that the majority of them are legitimate and accurate, but you also want to have an open mind. Some ratings and reviews may be more negative because perhaps it was a disgruntled employee. It's possible. And then on the converse side, some companies may encourage their employees to share favorable ratings. So you just have to exercise caution and common sense, and I think that you guys have had many years of working that. So really in terms of the interview protocols, it can be a one-on-one. Phone screen is always a one-on-one, or at least 90% of the time. It can be a one-on-one. It can be teams. I've been interviewed myself, and I've interviewed with panels, so that's something to look out for. Has anyone been through panel interviews before in here? Just a few of you? Okay. That's becoming more and more popular. It can vary from 2 people to 4 to 6, and they can ask a variety of questions, all different subjects, and it can sometimes break concentration because you're typically used to focusing on one-to-one dialogue, and they'll play off of each other's points. So that's something just that's kind of a more newer development. Thank you notes are encouraged. You guys can write them back in email or do it old school with a stamp, up to you. But they should go out in 24 hours. You just want to be able to take the opportunity to remind them who you are, thank them for their time, and then restate why you are a great candidate. That's an opportunity for you as well. Interview to placement or rejection time, we've talked about it. It can be up to 4 weeks, it can be 4 to 8 weeks. If someone's filling a position for president, it can take a year. So it really expands to the process itself. Dress comfortably and professionally, have prepared questions. Sometimes having the consistent group of questions will help you if you're interviewing at multiple brands at the same time, so that you're weighing the responses in a better, more aligned fashion. So you're not asking different questions to different companies. It'll be a bit of an apples, oranges comparison. Practice, whether you practice with friends, your parents, you practice yourself in the mirror, and then sometimes taking notes during interview is a helpful thing. Not to break the concentration of or tone or mood of the interview, but because then you can use your notes to then strengthen follow-up correspondence afterwards. So something to definitely think about. So interview questions. I've underlined 2 because I think that they are important. Not everyone will graduate with an internship. That's a reality, and that's not necessarily a negative thing. So I'm going to jump to those first. You could get asked, what did you learn at your internship? Some unexpected responses which are useful and powerful would be, I learned discipline, I learned accountability and adaptability. Those are important hiring criteria today, very important. And if you learn those things, those are good words to use to talk about you understanding how an organization runs, being accountable for your work output, and then really being adaptable and flexible, because agencies are wildly changing places. That's why we choose advertising. Everything we do changes every day, which is exciting, but can also be a bit chaotic. Question 8, if you didn't have an internship, why? So a good answer to this is loyalty, and loyalty is a good thing. You've returned to a standing position with history and year-over-year growth. I can tell you that my daughter thus far has returned to the same company. It's a wonderful startup business, and it's a great category, and I think it's more powerful than any internship that she could have had thus far. So that is a very positive thing. So we'll jump back up to the top. They'll ask you out of the gate what you know about your company. It's happened to me. I've asked that question. And if you're ill-prepared to say at least 3 sensible answers that are aligned to what the company really stands for, that would be a deal breaker, and then you would most likely move out of consideration. Why does this position appeal to you? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? That's been asked since the dawn of time. What do you consider your greatest accomplishment, biggest obstacle? How did you overcome it? Those are all pretty standard questions. Soft skills, your interpersonal skills are important. People ask about that. Are you a good team player? Then jumping down to salary requirement. How many of you guys have in your mind already the salary requirement you intend to ask for? Okay, well, hopefully by December, all those hands go up. You guys are marketable. You have great education. You've got great skills. You should be very aware of what you can command in the marketplace. Remember, you are interviewing them to work there, and they're interviewing you. You have as much power in this decision as well. So do your homework on the titles and companies that you are seeking, and know what range that is fair compensation. So be prepared to ask for that. Are you willing to relocate? Again, if you guys are not looking to stay in the state of Michigan, that's something that's going to broaden up some space to you. But if you do stay in the state of Michigan, many companies here have offices across the U.S. At one agency that I worked at, people in account services had the opportunity to go work in the LA office. So there are always opportunities that you guys can seek. You just need to look for them and be open to them. We've asked people, what do you like best about your university or your major, and then what are your hobbies? So this is interesting. What are your hobbies? What interests you outside of your career? If you say reading, or whatever you insert there, be prepared to have a follow-up question that says, what's the last book you read? That will happen to you. That's not a throwaway question. They're looking to see that you're being authentic, and they're looking to see how serious you are about your interests, as opposed to boilerplate answers. So something, food for thought. So then as far as offer acceptance goes, your strategy, tactics, and timing. So again, you guys don't necessarily have to accept the first offer that comes your way. You may not. Those are decisions that you guys will make based on your criteria on what really matters to you. But these are things to think about. What strategy you're going to have, what tactics you're going to use, and how much time. I red flagged this note about 24 hours to make a decision. So that is, to me, unrealistic. As a student, accepting your first position, 24 hours to make a decision on something that important seems not, to me, to not be enough time. So most companies will give you several days, some companies will give you a week, but you want to look for little flags like that, because if someone is pressuring you to make decisions quickly, that may not be the managerial style or culture that you would feel most comfortable in. If you're a fast-paced person and that doesn't bother you, it's a no-brainer, then that shouldn't trouble you. This is all very personal. All these things that I've assembled are for you to like ingest and then really use to your advantage based upon your own personal needs. But truly an offer should have position, title, salary. If you are relocating, they should certainly want to help compensate you for that move. PTO, so that's paid time off. Companies either have that as a standardized program, or again at entry level, you're going to want to ask because you're used to having vacation time, and in some firms you earn it, it's cumulative, and then you may only have 5 days or so your first year. Depending upon when you hire, if you hire after June, you may only have a handful of days and holidays. 401k, that's toward the end, but you do want to ask if your company has a participating 401k where you would be, part of your salary would contribute, and then they would match you at some degree or percentage, which is you investing in you, and that's important. Very important to do at this early stage of your career, even though it will feel like you may not have the money to do it. The investment will pay tenfold for you down the road. It's a wise thing to consider. Definitely talk to your parents or look it up online if you want to know more about that. Some firms will offer life insurance, and while that's not something anyone really wants to think about, it is a nice benefit to have. May not be a deal breaker. Medical coverage is critical. Be sure you go over their medical policy and how much they're contributing to it versus how much you will be contributing, because when you're contributing, it's coming out of your salary. So please pay a lot of attention to that. You guys are young, healthy people. We want to keep it that way. Continuing education. Some companies, you can talk to them at offer status if you're thinking about going on for your master's. How long do you have to be at the company before they either help contribute to you pursuing your master's? So that's something to consider. And then general health and wellness initiatives. Some companies offer gym memberships and things like that. So just really do your homework and know what matters to you in an offer, and these are just some general guidelines for things to think about. So validating your career path, that's going to happen throughout your career. As I said, you should think about your career, if you don't think about it any less than your annual. So most companies have annual reviews. Depending upon when you hire in, and that's something else you should consider as you're hiring in. When you hire in, you will, within a year, you will have a review of your peers who will talk to you about the goals that they had set for you and how you have accomplished them. You can definitely ask the folks in your HR department or your supervisor to provide you with criteria for your review before you get to your review, so that you can ensure that you are totally prepared to supply rationale for why you think you've met the requirements and you're looking for either a promotion or compensation. Promotions and compensation are performance-based, and they don't always happen at annual mark. Many years ago, the trajectory was, faster. You could really, there was so much, every year you could go from assistant to account executive to senior account executive and so on. Now with the diversified accounts, and people are not really always dedicated to one piece of business, sometimes that takes a bit longer, but you're more prepared when you get to that promotion level, so it's not necessarily a bad thing. That doesn't mean you wouldn't get a performance increase. It's the title, so they're two different things. You should be looking for a performance increase every year as long as you have a good review. That's reasonable, and the company should tell you statistically what percentage performance increases are being given. So that's something you can ask when you're employed. So as far as assessing your career, do it annually or do it twice a year or do it whenever the mood feels right and you're happy or you're becoming unhappy. You know what factors really will help you achieve that happiness, and you want to be happy when you're at your position. You don't want to be in a situation that feels dead end or feels like it's not advancing as much as you would like it to or as fast as you'd like it to. So if work-life balance is important to you, think about that. Do I have work-life balance? Am I at this company until midnight every night, and am I here all weekend, and am I not getting a raise, versus am I here occasionally late and am I here occasionally on weekends, but I'm getting acknowledged, I'm getting accolades, and I'm getting taken care of. That's, again, common sense. Salary and performance evaluations and promotions we've talked about. Opportunities for advancement. So you may hire into a company and maybe not love or fall in love with the department you're in. Explore other departments within reason. You can talk to your supervisor and ask to job shadow in a production department. If that's something you fancy, you could ask to job shadow in strategy, unless you're looking to hire directly into strategic planning. But you have a great environment and you're investing time in this company and you have history. So look first within to see if there are other growth opportunities and paths for you. How's the culture and environment? Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel like you've got a place that you, again, get up every day and you're excited to go to work? See if they have additional training options. Some companies now offer supplemental training programs. That's very good for you and for your career. If they're offering it free of charge, you definitely want to try to take them up on it if you have the time based upon what your workload is. Friends and advocates. So this is important. There's a statistic that people stay at companies longer than they should because they have more than two very close friends there. Friends are great. Having friends where you work is an important and healthy dynamic, but you do have to just be careful how long you're staying and if that's the primary reason, because you would miss your friends. And I'm being really honest with you. There are companies where you may be happy or unhappy, and if you're unhappy, you may stay because you have someone there who commiserates with you and someone you really enjoy seeing every day. You just have to kind of find that balance. Advocates are really important, especially for your promotional trajectory. You're going to want to, through your reputation and performance, you're going to develop advocates whether you know it or not. There will be people within an organization that will see you, appreciate your talent, appreciate your value, seek you out. It's just important to keep them on your radar, have regular conversations with them, let them know you appreciate the fact that they're supporting you. Those people become really important in your day-to-day work life, but they become really important when decisions are being made as you move to officer level. It's critical to have. It's kind of like Game of Thrones. Like you have your allies and you have your alliances, and it's important to have those people in your life, and you'll know who they are. Keep your resume current. Carve out time to keep your resume current. Sometimes it's harder when you let time go by and you look back and you're thinking, what campaigns did I work on that went well, or what research drove the consumer insight? just try to stay current. I recommend a personal journal. I've kept one for a number of years. It's just something very easy to do that you can just jot facts down and then you're pulling them, back into your resume and folding them in. When it's fresh in your mind, you're going to do your best writing, and I'm assuming we've got some great writers in here, and a great resume is just your strongest tool. Build your data. So sometimes things will slide by that you won't think are all that important, but they are. So anytime you have facts, numbers, quantifiable results on a campaign, again, put it in your resume or at least jot it down in a personal journal, because it's going to be helpful to you either when you're getting promoted or when you're marketing yourself to move on to a different company. Pay attention to company health and leadership changes. Sometimes leadership changes are amazing. They happen for all the right reasons at the right time, and it's designed to move a company forward. Other times they could happen for unforeseen reasons. An account resigns, an account leaves an agency. You want to pay attention to that because those are periods where people become vulnerable. People at all levels, from executive vice president, executive creative directors, down to account coordinators. That is the reality. It isn't driven exclusively by title, and it's not driven by performance. People are let go because business is lost. So pay attention to your company's health. And then opportunities. So I know assistant account executives, as I mentioned earlier, who had lost their positions. So that is something, again, not hoping or suggesting it's going to happen to you, but being prepared and being aware and not being shocked and surprised. So I do want to tell you some important things about that. I see them as opportunities. It's an opportunity for someone who's just starting out their career to take what they've learned and market it elsewhere. You will be marketable when or if you lose a position. That doesn't mean the end of the world, and it doesn't mean you won't find something wonderful elsewhere. The industry understands now that position elimination is driven by revenue and profitability. It's, again, there is a difference between a termination for poor performance and group layoffs, and that's just widely known. We're talking about promotions, and I mentioned again, you can ask to see the evaluation form for your title, and you can certainly ask for titles you aspire to. So if you're an assistant account executive and you want to become an account director, you could ask your HR department to see the job description for an account director, or you could go onto LinkedIn and search account director at any company, reputable agency, and you're going to see a list of the responsibilities. For you to get promoted, you want to focus on mastering or getting to execute some of those responsibilities, or watch your supervisor as they're executing those and get guidance and learning from them directly. So as far as position elimination, we've talked about it. Again, pay attention to your brand, pay attention to the company's overall health. It may mean transfer to another account. That's a reality. They may move you from one piece of business to another because they want to try and keep you, or they may simply be unable to, again, financial decision. For entry-level position eliminations, it offers, in most cases, a maximum of 2 weeks compensation with or without. So again, you guys have to be prepared. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. You have to be prepared. 2 weeks is not a lot of time to find another job. So again, I'm not trying to frighten you. You guys are starting out. You're going to have wonderful, successful careers. I'm simply trying to prepare you for the realities that could be out there at any level. And then growth and development. So financial security is an important part of your job search, obviously, unless you're going to manage a volunteer role where you go in understanding that it's going to be a challenge and you'll probably have to supplement, which is admirable and helpful. But again, just having that base knowledge, you want to know what the cost of living is, what you're going to be earning to be able to help you meet every day in the monetary demands that will hit you. So I talked a bit about the 401k. I really do encourage you guys to investigate it at all the companies that you are applying at. Just ask openly, is 401k an option, and how much do you contribute? What is the company's contribution percentage? It is in ranges. You can go high or low, but I definitely encourage you guys to invest in yourselves. Adding skills, again, we talked about training. There are things within a company or things you can do online now. LinkedIn has a ton of courses in premium where you can learn project management and many other things that are really helpful and beneficial to your career. Seek opportunities, market yourself. So joining clubs and boards. So in Detroit, there's a club called AdCraft. My husband, who's joined us today, was president of that organization. It's a great company. It's a great organization to start out with. It is a networking opportunity and event/social. If you are so inclined and want to do things that do take you to a board level, you can join, be an active participant, leader in it, get voted onto boards, and end up becoming the president of the ag craft, which you serve for a year. It's really exciting. You get to do a lot of amazing things for the community, a lot of give back. Mentor someone or find a mentor. Within your company that you work at, they may have mentoring programs. If they don't, you can always ask someone you admire, would you be willing to mentor me? That would be back and forth dialogue talking about business issues and your career. So that's a reality, and you can certainly ask for it if one doesn't exist. Volunteer to help other departments, other teams at your company. You'll learn a lot. Attend conferences. So there is a conference. It's expensive, but it's a great conference. It will be in its third year next May. It's called The Future of Everything. I would encourage you guys to look it up. It is offered by the Wall Street Journal. It's in New York. It's 3 days, 3 to 4 days in May. They have had Jessica Alba. They've had people from HBO. They've had incredible speakers of every sports and marketing, advertising, music and entertainment, film, television film, business, every possible financial business. They've had every possible panel assembled, and these are amazing speakers. It runs, again, 3 to 4 days in New York, but there are many other more inexpensive and local conferences that you can attend. Just be on the lookout for them. It's a great opportunity to network, meet people you might not have the chance to meet, and again, learn amazing things from guest speakers. And then really celebrate the journey. This is an exciting period for all of you guys. There are amazing jobs out there, incredible entry-level positions across the U.S. There are a lot in Michigan. There's been a tremendous amount of growth in the state of Michigan, a lot of activity in Detroit, Metro Detroit area, and then on the west side of the state. Just know what you're looking for. Are you looking for a small, a medium-sized, a large agency? Are you looking for a company that you could really get excited about, one that you have experience with? It is all part of the journey, but the time it's going to take you is very similar to the time it took you to select and accept the college you attend now. So you're going to have a great path ahead of you, and I hope that some of the things that I've shared with you are useful to you in that journey. Again, it's a workbook. You can feel free to use it. I've offered you my contact information. My email's in here. Again, I know you see my bio, and it's just another summary. 2 advertising agencies, repositioned brands, filmed all over the world, London, Germany, Mexico, went up through the ranks like you guys will do in a hierarchy organization up to officer level, restructured departments. I've promoted 200 plus multi-generational teams, 100 plus new business pitches, and earned the trust of my colleagues. That's something you guys will be doing every day when you start your job. You will be demonstrating your brand to that company, and they will in turn be hopefully, again, investing and giving you opportunities. So, do you guys have questions? Yes?
What was your favorite project you worked on and why?
Great question. My favorite project that I worked on was the repositioning, or the audience expansion of BF Goodrich Tires. It's a Michelin company. The brand was Goodyear was its primary competitor, and I worked with John Hargrave at Michelin Group and his team at Donor Advertising, and gained the brand audience share beyond the automotive enthusiast group. And it was, honestly, Monochromatic was my favorite campaign that I ever worked on. We filmed in LA 3 months out of the year, 3+ months out of the year. Yes?
For people who are looking to go more freelancing after college, how do you recommend the best way to address yourself up to that?
Okay, that's a great question. It would depend upon what type of freelancing you were looking to do. Can you?
So I'm an entrepreneur. So
okay.
I wanted business build, so yeah.
Okay, so I would encourage you to first and foremost find someone who you know that does that presently. So you can you can look for freelancers on LinkedIn and find some that appeal to you, reach out for conversations, or again, in your own personal one-on-one network. If you know people that are presently doing it, they're going to give you 10 steps faster than anyone else because they've made the journey. Freelancing typically works best when you've built up a client base or you've built up a skill set. So as long as you have work that you can demonstrate, and again, with work it's touchy. When you freelance, you have to have, if you don't sign an NDA, non-disclosure, you have to be sure you have permission to use work for self-promotion. That's very important if you're going to do something like that. So if you would definitely want to, there's a legal piece to it that you'd want to discuss with someone who's doing this presently, but you will get hired as a freelancer if you can build reputation, clients based on some type of a work sample and work success. But you are welcome to email me, and I'd be happy to connect you to some folks, okay? Sure, yes.
Can you maybe explain to us, those of us who are going into entry-level positions, how we can use multiple offers to kind of negotiate, or is that you can't do at entry level? What do you recommend surrounding that?
So that's a great question. So the question was, can you, while you're entertaining offers, and I hope that that happens to all of you, that you get multiple offers at the same time. That is a nice problem to have. If that happens, you want to make sure that you've got a set period of time. You will know based on how far you've gone in the interview process if you should divulge that to these groups, or if you just keep it to yourself and make the decision on your own. So that brings me back to the selection criteria. To me, if you've got selection criteria and you know what matters to you most, if compensation is your top priority, it may or may not be, and you have an offer that is the highest compensation, but maybe not your favorite cultural fit, you have to make a personal decision on whether you expose, without exposing the company name, you would say, you know, thank you so much for your offer. I do have another offer on the table. My heart is with your firm, but I have to consider the financial aspect. And would you be willing to negotiate or consider an increase? So you do it kind of very delicately, and you don't expose ever the other company, but you can do it. Just have to be super delicate. And again, you can email me, and I'm happy to help you. Yes?
What was your first job out of school, and what did you take out of it?
Assistant account executive, donor advertising, everything. It was a very entrepreneurial company, privately held at that time, and incredibly exciting place to work. I had the benefit of joining during a time when the company was wildly successful in winning Cannes Lions, and I had the opportunity to just really get to see work go from strategy insight to exceptional creative to impact in the marketplace. So it's watching work go from that initial stage through completion, and how exciting it is to see something that you've been a part of show up on the air. That was incredible. Again, advertising is such an exciting industry. That hasn't changed. You will have friends in other fields that have, I'm sure, wonderful jobs, but your job will always grow because it's so deeply entrenched in pop culture and the changes in the consumer marketplace. It will always be exciting.